Pro wrestling is as forgiving as it is cruel, but more importantly, it's often live. A star can be on top of the world, or even just enjoying a consistent paycheck in the mid-card. And then boom, out of nowhere, one dumb or even seemingly harmless move on live television can land them a one-way ticket straight out of Vince McMahon's good books, or even his toy box as a whole. Smiling like a goof, putting your hands on the boss, or simply just stinking up the joint can all lead to the obliteration of a superstar's reputation or even contract with the company. My name is Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 wrestlers who destroyed their careers on live television. Number 10. Paul London, Monday Night Raw, June 2007. "We put smiles on faces" is often WWE's go-to adage. Have you got issues with how they're lionizing known assholes in the Hall of Fame? Come on, think of the young fans we put smiles on faces. Disgusted with their complicity in Saudi Arabia's sport washing program? Hey now, think of the wrestling lifers still watching every week we put smiles on faces. Concerned that young talent aren't allowed to remotely show personality themselves without taking explicit instructions on every single aspect of their act? That's just not true. We put smiles on but they don't, do they? If they did, Paul London's cards would not have been marked forever for this hilariously odd 2007 transgression. Vince McMahon was en route to killing his character for the first of several times, and arranged for his bunch of toy soldiers to stand stone-faced as he strolled to his demise. London's grinning face captured the absurdity better than most, even if it saw him taking pedigrees for the remainder of his run. Number 9. Titus O'Neil, Monday Night Raw, February 2016. Just know that this random act of friendly frivolity cost Titus O'Neil 60 days of work and a WrestleMania payday in 2016. The entire roster, including Vince McMahon, had just clapped off a retiring Daniel Bryan to tearfully end a particularly somber edition of Monday Night Raw. But the chairman was clearly in no mood for some light relief after such a heavy-duty send-off, for a wrestler he always hated pushing anyway. Right as the primetime player appeared to grab his arm in a bit of overfamiliar horseplay. Titus has yet to find himself in a position of any prominence since this awkward altercation. Well, unless Titus World Slide counts as meaningful exposure, which it definitely does not. Number 8. Jeff Hardy, TNA Victory Road 2011. By being so constantly appealing to promoters for his extremely unique bond with a sizable portion of the fanbase, admittedly, Jeff Hardy can never truly destroy his career. If he had such a power, this would have probably been the moment he deployed it. Now, he may have pressed the self-destruction button himself, but it took several abysmal calls for everybody to have to see it play out live on a wrestling pay-per-view. The charismatic enigma shouldn't have got himself in no condition to perform. But that exact phrase was invented because of the literal connotations in action. His condition wasn't so much questionable, but critical. He'd have been a danger to himself and others had his match with Sting not been literally wrapped up by the veteran within a minute of the opening bell ringing. The icon looked livid with the situation throughout. But Jeff was too far gone to realize that he wasn't even there. That he managed to rebuild his career and legacy from this low was an achievement as lofty as any World Championship win. Number 7. Vince Russo, WCW Nitro/Thunder 2000. Vince Russo was more than entitled to believe his own hype in 1999, when WCW reversed the Ted Turner money truck against his house, and kept unloading until he agreed to move to Atlanta. It was brave of the company to take a chance. It was brave of the man to bet on himself. Both brave, both fatally flawed. Russo damaged his legacy, but tarnished everything else the second he decided to be an on-screen character as well. As a heel authority figure, he exhausted a trope that barely felt tired on the other channel, undermining numerous wrestlers he seemingly actually wanted to push. Narrowed down to one moment, Russo's anus horribilis in 2000 peaked with a burial of Hulk Hogan that landed himself and others in a lot of legal hot water. Number 6. Mr. Kennedy, Monday Night Raw 2009. When Mr. Kennedy held the Money in the Bank briefcase aloft at WrestleMania 23, with the knowledge that his arc called for a cash-in 1 year later, he probably didn't imagine that he'd be gone in 2, without ever getting so much as a sniff of the strap he'd aspired to snare. Injuries, suspensions, and some inadvertently ill-advised comments made to the media about drug use in wrestling relentlessly chipped away at the genuine aura Kennedy had crafted around himself during a barren period for SmackDown stars in 2006. Several political and professional missteps in the time between superstardom and his sacking left him with few supporters after he dropped Randy Orton on his surgically repaired shoulder. Supposedly referring to his locker room leaders for clarification, Vince trusted the judgment of both Orton and John Cena in cutting bait on the cocky character. As if to illustrate just how far he'd actually fallen, few of his fans even really cared when he left. Number 5. KRONIK Unforgiven 2001. WWE deserve every inch of blame they did not impose upon themselves during the recent Ruthless Aggression docuseries for the gross mishandling of the 2001 WCW invasion. Though admittedly short on most of Atlanta's major names, they weren't exactly shy of workable warm bodies to do far more than just lay down for Bradshaw. Sean O'Hare could do a better swanton bomb than Jeff Hardy, despite being the size of Batista. And Mike Awesome had been the giant fish in small ponds guy that fans couldn't wait for Vince McMahon to sign. Never mind buying your competition, this was buying two of the biggest from your past and getting to use them again in the present. Yeah, regrettably, it tragically wasn't, was it? As workers Brian Clark and Brian Adams had undoubtedly regressed in the 6 and 4 years respectively they'd been out of McMahon's eye line. And no cute gimmick and set of sensational haircuts was going to keep them employed after a catastrophic pay-per-view debut against Undertaker and Kane. The invasion was a footnote in WWE's lengthy downturn from its 2000 boom, as one and done warriors KRONIK were merely footnotes to the footnote. And speaking of one and dones, number 4, Buff Bagwell Monday Night Raw 2001. There's a reason Vince McMahon still stubbornly rebukes his audience, regardless of the boos they shower upon a supposed top babyface, or disinterest they have for his major angles. That reason is one Buff Bagwell. Bagwell was always somewhat of a gamble of a hire back in 2001, almost entirely due to the weird Emperor Caesar type game that Vince McMahon played with the Raw crowd the night that he purchased WCW. Asking for boos or cheers as he raised his thumb to the sky and floor, he noted with surprise the cheers that went out for the stuff, and decided to give him a go in the ill-fated WCW Raw event the following June. A match with Booker T was doomed to failure before the bell even rang, but the two profoundly failed to win over a hostile crowd. Buff's relations weren't any better with those in the locker room either, and he was booted in something of a statement sacking just days later. Number 3, Jeff Jarrett Monday Night Raw 1997. Attempting to read the room in style, if not execution, a returning Jarrett strolled into 1997 WWE with a pissed-off attitude and an almighty chip on his shoulder over how things had gone the last time. Plenty of folk were blurring the work-shoot lines at the time, but the guitar-swinging menace picked the exact wrong targets at the exact wrong time when it came to letting his fury fly. Referring to Stone Cold Steve Austin's Austin 316 mantra as blasphemous, right as it was about to carry the company into untold wealth, Jarrett immediately killed the Rattlesnake's enthusiasm to ever work with him. From there, he had a pop at political heavyweights D-Generation X and railed on the product in an effort to make his persona feel needed by it. Quickly welcomed into the mid-card, he was permanently kept away from the top slots for the entirety of his 2-year run. Number 2, Al Snow 1995. Al Snow's in-ring work had been positively lauded by those who had caught him in ECW and Japan in the mid-1990s, with a run as a heel in Smoky Mountain Wrestling suggesting he also had the charisma to be considered one of the best all-rounders in the game. However, his disastrous WWE debut informed a near decade of Vince McMahon flatly refusing to take him seriously as one. Working as a Hayabusa Power Ranger hybrid in a mask, he only added to his ensemble when he got in the ring. Snow's debut against jobber Brian Walsh is a profound failure of both person and persona. Snow slips and slides all over the shop attempting his daring high spots, undermining the supposed technique and skill of a confused and unfinished character. Walsh actually got periods of dominance in before being polished off by Snow, who then removed his mask to less reaction than he had during his actual entrance. It appeared that the audience had seen enough of that, And so too had Vince McMahon. Snow was pulled from the upcoming Survivor Series 1995 card. ECW eventually came to his aid with the head reinvention in 1998, but the ceiling McMahon imposed on that only highlighted how damaging that first impression had been. Number 1. Luke Harper, Monday Night Raw 2014. Legend has it that Vince McMahon lost interest in Luke Harper forever after witnessing the former Wyatt family member knock out a pretty horrific Southern States accent. It was that specific promo that apparently sealed his fate. But naturally, there was more meat on the bone than the scrapings Vince McMahon took for his steak wrap. Man, I'm hungry. This was a segment that made very little sense from a general period that made even less. 2014 Survivor Series main event featuring a bunch of heels and faces deciding if they were with or against the authority was hardly solid foundation with which to grow. But Harper's wonky delivery of wonky material was enough, sadly. Imagine a wild and dated McMahon prejudice not actually being valid after all. What a time to be alive. And that's our list. Know of any other wrestlers who destroyed their careers on live television? Let us know all about them in the comments section below. And do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button. Check out whatculture.com for more cracking articles like this one written by Michael Hamflett. I've been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling. Stay safe, chaps and chapettes, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.